Thank you so much for joining us for the third webinar with the developmental screening tip sheets. Today we'll be having a talk about engaging parents in developmental screening. My name is Jenny Maurer. I work at the Department of Health Services and the Department of Children and Families, and I'm so pleased to be working with so many wonderful people to be sharing great information about a community approach to developmental screening. And I'm so happy that all of you can join us today. Today I'm presenting with Jill Elliott. Jill is from Family Community Partnership, is the Family and Community Partnership Coordinator with the Early Learning Program for the Eau Claire Area School District. We're also happy to have Linda Tuckman. Linda Tuckman is from the Wiseman Center at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and she's the Program Director for Early Childhood and Education. And finally, Romelia Schluter, the Quality Improvement Specialist from Supporting Families Together Association. So thank you all for presenting today, and thank you all for joining us. A couple of logistical notes. All of the participants are muted here today. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please type them into the question box that should be on your screen. We'll do our best to answer questions during the presentation. We'll also have a few minutes for questions at the end, and if we don't get to all of the questions, we'll do our best to answer them after the webinar is done. So before we kind of get to the content here, I want to make sure that everyone has a copy of tip sheet number 6, Engaging Parents in Developmental Screening. So here's just a screenshot of it. If you take a look at the bottom of the slide on the page, you can also access the tip sheet from the Collaborating Partners website that's listed at the bottom of the slide here. So if you have access to it and can print it now, that'd be great, but you can always access it once the webinar is done. So make sure to take a look at that. On that same website, you can also go there to find archives of previous webinars, and in about 5 to 10 days, I'll put up an archive of this webinar here today. So you can go there to access those webinars, all of the tip sheets, and you can register for future webinars. So now I'm going to turn it over to Romelia, who will get us started with what we'll be covering today. Romelia?
Excellent. This is Romelia Schluter, and I like to think that it's more than engaging parents, that this is about creating partnerships with the families, because parents do not feel like partners in the relationship when staff members see themselves as having all the knowledge and the insight about children and view the parents as lacking such knowledge. Important for us is to have a plan to communicate about problems and about conflicts, to engage parents in finding solutions and to make them feel good by sharing with them. And I want to begin with a story from the field. This is an activity that one of the providers in Milwaukee created and invited her families to a dinner and an ASU. Isn't that bright from her? So she planned an activity to give information regarding screening. She invited the families to meet at the daycare and to fill their child's ASQ. The provider had then available all age-appropriate questionnaires, toys, and any material that she was going to need for the observations. She was also ready to answer questions while the parents were completing the screeners for their children. The parents received during the event a handout for all age-appropriate suggested activities, and they enjoyed a dinner that the provider had prepared for them. The families at the end of the evening filled an evaluation of the activity, but the best of things is that many of them asked, when will the next session will be scheduled? And I thought, wow, that's such a sign that the families were engaged in this process and that they were ready to move us forward. I had shared with you the story of a beautiful provider in Milwaukee who created an unbelievable moment with their families, inviting them to an event called a dinner and an ASQ. And she created the moment with the family to a point when at the end of the event, several of the people who participated, the parents, were asking when will the next session would be scheduled. And I just thought that's such a sign that the parents were engaged in this process, that she has really touched the nerve, that she was creating partnerships with these families. So we have missed so much time now in our webinar that we are going to probably go on and share with you some other of the pieces of the stories that we really don't want to miss with you. So let's talk a little bit about being strength-based and what do that means with the families. So when this means that the families will feel more capable of responding to the developmental screening results of the child. So they feel empowered, that they are good advocates for their kids. When we focus on the strength or in what makes the families happy, this is an important strategy to promote reciprocal relationships. So we are beginning to create those partnerships that we mentioned before. My experience as a parent, as a home visitor, as a trainer, and even as an immigrant, and in case you haven't caught that English is not my first language, I am originally from El Salvador in Central America. So my experience is that feeling understood is a key element in building these relationships with the families that we want to engage in screening. So when we recognize, respect, respond to ethnic and cultural diversity, all the different forms that make the family and the environmental context where the families are raising the children, we develop those relationships of trust, and that has the potential to result in active participation, like in the case of our provider in Milwaukee, right? And there is a resource that I would love Linda to share with you.
Hi, this is Linda, and Romelia and I have both been reading an article written by Linda Gilkerson, along with some of her other colleagues, about the Erickson Institute's Fussy Baby Network, and we have a reference for you to an article that was in the 0 to 3 magazine in November of 2012 that is really talking about an approach to engaging parents around their urgent concerns when their baby is crying or having trouble with sleeping or feeding, but it's really a beautiful framework that provides an opportunity to think of all the different components that are involved in trying to engage families positively in communication. So learning about what she calls the SAN approach can be very helpful in thinking about all that's entailed in having a positive relationship with a family. It thinks about trying to start with where they might be in their own feelings, what will help them sort of be present with you, to be calm, to help you be able to think things through, then to think about what the action is, and then how you do that together, and then how you come back and reflect upon that. So it is a I guess Romelia's excitement about this article sort of reminded me why it's a really good reason to share this resource with you. And we can post the link. We can post the link to this later on and make sure that Jenny has that. But while I have it, Romelia, is this a good time for me to just a universal approach? So one of the things that is really useful in taking a universal universal approach is to think about what kind of outreach we're doing in our communities that include all families that we would like to be able to offer the assuring information that their children's development is on target, or to give us an opportunity to say, oh, you know, there's something going on that we have some concerns about that we want to follow up on. I got invited to participate in this discussion about sharing with communities the information on these tip sheets because I've been involved as co-chair of the Aligned Screening and Assessment Project team, where we've made a commitment to looking at what and supporting activities in communities that say, how are we as communities reaching out to all families? And I think one of the things that I think is most important is, while we take a universal approach, how do we think about the unique and individualistic needs of every child and family that we are engaging with? While Romy was telling the story about come for dinner and an ASQ, I was thinking, I wonder who came, you know? Did everybody in that, every single parent, so think about what that might have meant given the diversity of families that might have been served by that community, that maybe there were some parents who had a child where they were worried about their child's development, or maybe there was a family who thought their child was very gifted, and that they really, how do you individualize that engagement so that you are not scaring off families, and so where there are concerns that you have these universal principles of engagement that are helping you meet each family where they are. And I think that's where the FAN approach, or the Fussy Baby Network, can be so helpful.
All right, we're on to number 3. This is Jill from Eau Claire, and talking a bit about the universal approach. I've worked in a program where all families are part of the ASQ. It's just general practice. And I think that's reassuring to families, where they're not feeling that their children are being singled out or red flagged, that all children are going to go through the screening process as part of their enrollment in the program. That helps ease some of the family's anxieties about being screened. So I think that's an important thing to share here. The other thing about engaging families, from my perspective, is engagement isn't just the job of one staff member in your agency, or the teacher, or the home visitor, or what have you. It really has to be embraced by your entire program. The idea is to integrate parent engagement as a goal of your program, and that engagement really means that somebody is excited or feels inspired. When I think about when I get engaged, it's about being excited, and we want our parents to be excited about their child's development and growth. And when we find that, that's the best way to really engage them and keep them engaged. And this is Romelia again. I just want to share with you something that a way that we use at the Family Resource Center where I used to work. We had at the center a special column for the ASQ in the registration forms for play groups, parenting classes, support groups, so that the families that were participating in this could tell us if their child had been screened. I had staff or volunteers always available at the registration table to welcome the family. That's very, very important, that face-to-face, one-to-one. When the family checked no in the column of the ASQ, we followed up, usually face-to-face, to explain the screening tool we were using and to show them the material so that people could see how simple they were or know if they had questions. Once the family agreed to have their child screened, we provided the appropriate questionnaires and agree on a way that they could return it. And that gave us really, really good results. Many of the families, the next time they came to a play group for whatever activity they were taking part in, would bring the forms, and then we would make them available to the person that was helping us with the rating. You have here this person in other of these webinars, Lizzie Sexton. So we were all involved in this. So we have, now we are going to move a little bit to a variety of communication strategies. We are trying to move a little bit faster in this because the time that we miss. So when we talk about using a variety of communication strategies, I think what can we make, let's think of the families that we are trying to engage. Do we know, how well do we know them? Can you make a list of 3 or even 5 strengths that these families of the children that you are caring for have? How well do you know the families? Do the families know you? Do they know some of the strengths that you possess and that make you a good advocate for those children? So these are the pieces that could help us to move on and to develop this comfort with the families that we are working with. One of the things, frequently I do trainings for Spanish-speaking providers. On occasion, I need to communicate an urgent message. For example, this is another one of my my stories. For example, if I need to cancel a class or change the training site, I always use a trifold approach. First, I send an email to the group. I know that many of them are not going to read it. Then I make phone calls, and I ask the people that whom I am able to speak to share the message with others. Then if time is it permits it, I would send also a mailing, in the snail mail. So this, although it's an intense approach, has resulted in very interesting personal connections. I have learned a lot about just a person, or I have had opportunities to get to know my trainees a little bit better. Frequently, these participants in trainings tell me how much they appreciate the interest that I place in the professional development. When I was trying to figure out how to solve a problem, they interpret this as, oh, you are interested in us so much that you take the time to make a personal phone call. And the point here is that we need to explore diverse approaches that will speak to those who we are trying to engage. So,
hi, this is Jill. I have another comment about communication strategies. One of the things I think is really, really important when we're trying to build reciprocal relationship-based relationships is how we listen to people. And I think that's important that your staff in your facility have good listening skills, they're good active listeners. Through those skills, we're going to be able to build deeper relationships with the families in our programs. One of my favorite quotes is from Peter Block, and he said that people need to be heard, not fixed. And I think that is the motto of my work with families, is to listen. And through listening, I am much better able to meet their needs.
And this is Linda, and being one of the oldsters in the group here, I've been thinking about communication. I'm thinking about the parents of young children are, like I could be their grandma, kind of. But we communicate differently now as a society because of all the technology at our fingertips. And thinking about, I've heard so many people say things like lately, I can't get anybody to answer a cell phone, but if I send a text, I can get a really brief message back. Or maybe our program should put out a tweet about what we're doing in school today. And it obviously stretches my mind to think about that, but if we try to think about the way young people who are our young parents now, and sometimes our young providers in our network are communicating with each other, if we are trying to reach out to families, it's important to think about how we use that full range of face-to-face communication where we're deeply listening, all the way to the continuum of these really brief technological messages. But I also think we can never assume that all young people and all parents have access to the network, because I know there is some research from one of my colleagues at UW-Madison who has identified that families and Latino rarely use the internet as a main source of seeking information. It's just, I don't know what, it's like access, literacy, whatever. It just isn't a big cultural way for accessing information. So you really have to have a sense of what to use for whom, but to have at your fingertips and not be afraid to think about how technology might help you with brief, short, ongoing communications, especially around drop-off, pick-up, trying to find ways to engage families when there isn't time.
So we are moving on to this information. Believe it or not, technology didn't beat us. So so we are going through the necessity to explain the developmental screening process to the families. Linda was talking about us making assumptions. We cannot assume that people will understand the material because we think it's very simple and the vocabulary used is to a level that everybody should understand. So explaining that process, showing the forms to the families, giving them opportunities to ask questions, that's all extremely, extremely important, and we should continue doing it. It's best practice to make sure that they have access to you in case they need help in completing it. This happens all the time. People take the questionnaire and then you call them a week later, what happened? Oh, I haven't finished it, and then you ask again and you ask again. This recently happened to me with a family I was doing the SKU with, and finally I just went to the home and I said, look, would you like to complete this together? And they were very grateful to have that opportunity. So making assumptions, not a good idea. So our next slide is to acknowledge the parents' role as experts of their own children, something that we could never lose the vision from, because it's the parents in your program that should have opportunities to network, for example, with other parents. Always encouraged to participate in the life of the program. We could ask ourselves, do my program have places for them to gather and talk? Or is just the front door where they are going to drop the kids? Are they recognized and supported and respected for their strengths? And I can think of a dad that was coming to some of the parenting classes in one of the programs I used to run, and he was a little bit lost in the parenting class because he was actually doing the classes as a requirement to regain custody of his child. So he was a bit feeling, I'm not part of this. Everybody else is a parent that have their kids at home. They are going to go and complete the stuff with them. I suggested to this dad that he could use this developmental information he was receiving to stay up to date on the milestone that his child was reaching, and to be able to ask informed questions during the supervised visits that he had. He was so successful in this. He was so happy. One time he came to the class and said, look what I did. I traced my hands and I wrote messages for my little kid, and I gave them to the person that was to my child in the moment of the supervised visit. For this father, to be part, the ASQ was like a window where he could see the child that he didn't have access to at this moment in his life. And most important, he was able to feel part of the group that the other parents were participating in. To be active part of the class. He was engaged by us giving him the opportunity to open a door for him.
I also think the ASQ screening process really is a tool for parents to learn stuff about developmental milestones, what their child should or should be doing at that age time, and to have more age-appropriate expectations. I've seen in our program many times where parents, after they finish the ASQ, they have a bit of wonder about all these amazing things their children can do or are working to do.
And while the ASQ is an opportunity for us to educate parents on child development, in my many years of working with families of children with disabilities, I have never had a discussion with a family when a concern was identified that the family didn't really have a sense about it first. And so that's another way that families are experts on their own children's development. They may not know everything about child development, and they may not be able to put it in the total context of the a developmental checklist or the ASQ, but they have a gut reaction about it, and the ASQ gives them an opportunity to validate that there may be a concern or not. The other way to sort of think about how we acknowledge what comes from a parent's intuition is that sometimes I have heard, oh, I'm trying to engage this parent and say we want to do this ASQ because we have some concerns, and the family denies that and says they don't want to do that. But I would guarantee you that taking the time to join with that family and back up from completing a questionnaire to having a conversation to engaging that family will take you back to a place that makes it feel safe for them to act on their gut, that says, I know something isn't right here, but I'm afraid to say that, and I'm afraid to do that. And so this external behavior you see has nothing to do with what I'm worrying about inside. So sometimes when you feel some resistance, try to think about what might be going on with that family. If you have concerns, maybe they do too. And so to really trust and let that parent know that you trust what they know about their child is a really important part of that.
And so the parents are the experts of their own children, and we recognize that expertise, and we give them all the support that they need in the role as parents, and then we give them the opportunities to share those ideas and those concerns, and we create those moments. And that's one of the reasons why I like to use some of the examples of real moments that have happened in programs, because to me it's the best way to illustrate the theory that we have in these fields. So continuing with acknowledging the parents' roles, besides being the experts, they are also the decision makers. And when we consider that, I always, and I have in front of me that image of Uri Bomfenbrenner that gives you this macro system where the child exists, the ecological theory, and the child in there and all the different systems around the child, the parents' role, and they make all the decisions because they are the ones that know deep in this child inside out, and they are the ones that are going to give us the opportunity to make good programs, create good moments. they teach the values to them. So when we know the parents and their values, we have an idea of those value commitments that the child will have and that resemble their parents. So one of the things that I ask myself when I'm confronted with this moment is, what have been the most important challenges, for example, that I have faced when I try to establish these relationships with the family? What do I confront? And it's almost like taking an exam of my own perceptions, my own ideas. What activities have I organized to engage the parents, which is about what I was thinking when I was preparing for this webinar. Do I have an idea of some of the needs of the families that I want to engage? Do I know how these families are meeting those needs that they have? So how are the challenges that these families are facing? How are they impacting their participation in my program? Do they have a way to get here? Do they have a car? Do they have to take the bus? So all those small pieces will help me to be more compassionate with the families when they don't respond to my invitations, and then I will be stopped from thinking, oh, they just don't want to collaborate, they are not interested in. So I stop that condemnation, and then I just think, okay, what are they facing? I have a car to get to my meeting. What do they have? Are they going to walk? So this is in the decision making, and then of course the parents are nurturers, right? And we are talking to a group of people who, in this profession, nurturing is the name of the game. We have anyone that is in the early childhood education field is a nurturer. So that's where we are right now. So when we talk about the nurturing and the challenge, how challenging can this be for a family that maybe doesn't have the emotional resources that they need to be nurtured? And when we talk about, when Linda was talking about families with special needs, those challenges are even more prevalent, I would think. Many times these families are overextended, and the children might also have different needs, different preferences for nurturing behavior. So when we try to learn how to attend to the children's needs by building a positive relationship with these families, what we are doing is sending a consistent message of love and support, so that as we send this message to the parent then reflects it on the children, and the children come back and reflect it on us, the providers, and on each other, the children. So I just, you know, I don't know if Linda and Jill have more on this piece, but to me, this is the piece when we hear the word nurture. And as we try to develop relationships with these families that are so busy working, trying to, in many instances, to survive. So how are we getting to them? What are we doing to make sure that, and I can think of reflective practice. That's because I'm taking a class, and my professor, one of my professors is right here with me in this as one of the panelists. Linda is teaching this class on infant mental health, and we talk a lot about reflective practice. And what a beautiful practice to have, not just in the field, but in our personal lives. Because when we are able to face a situation that we feel disquiet, you know, like at the beginning of this webinar, none of the systems are working. The telephone, you guys couldn't hear any of us because the microphones weren't working, the lines. So to have this knowledge to step back and to think, okay, what can I do right now
so that I don't fall apart, and then I won't be able to function and do nothing about it. So as a parent, as a provider, when we are able to step back, gather ourselves, then we are able to go forward and face a family that might be in the middle of a crisis, and that we can do something to help them to be again together. You know, what experiences, what moments do we have? What responsibility do we have to learn about those different abilities so that we can pass them on as we receive these opportunities? We can pass them on to the parents, to the children. So are we going to move on? Yes, please.
That was just so beautifully stated and heartfelt that, you know, as we hold ourselves, we're able to hold the families we work with, and as we hold the families we work with, they're able to hold their children. And it's just,
Linda,
yeah.
oh, now we hear you.
Okay, I was just saying that that was just such a beautiful statement from Romelia as she's talking about how we hold ourselves to bring forward the best we can to try to engage families. And as we engage positively and hold families, it helps them to hold their children. And I just want to
Oh, you're drifting away again, Linda.
She stated that so beautifully from her heart.
Oh.
Yeah. So, yeah, questions? We have a few minutes for questions now, right?
Sure, we do have a few minutes for questions. If folks want to type those into the question box that everyone has been using as we've gone through our various technology challenges. But if there are any questions, please feel free to type them into the box at this point.
They're all coming together, the question.
So no questions yet. Jill, perhaps maybe we haven't heard as much from you. Any other thoughts or stories to share?
I actually have a resource that I would love to share. What's happening now? We're having another issue here.
Jenny, can you hear us?
I can hear you intermittently. It sounds like the phone maybe is being passed around.
Oh, I don't know. It just seems like we're coming to the end with the same problem we began with.
Well, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Wants to offer a resource.
Sure, please.
Here is a resource. It's a magazine called Exchange from the Child Care Exchange, and it has the issue for January, February 2013 has a beautiful, beautiful couple articles on today's families. And one of the articles is called Today's Families, Who Are We and Why Does It Matter? And the other one is Family Gatherings That Build Partnerships. The articles are awesome. I think it would be worth to check this in if you don't already have a subscription to this magazine.
And just so folks know, I will, when I send out an evaluation, and I can also send a list of the resources that were mentioned on this call today. So we'll be sure to get those resources to you. And we do have a question. Someone asked, how do you help families feel less threatened by developmental screening?
I think for me, one of the ways is to show them the materials, explaining to them that the objective is for the children to have the resources that they need to develop, to be at level with their peers or to develop appropriately. If the families feel that you are not going to go and take their kids away, this is one of the things that family have told me. What if
I am doing something wrong and I am going to lose my kids because this. I think for me it has worked that by just showing them the material, showing them that I don't have anything negative in store for them other than the interest that their child will have all the resources that he or she needs to move on their development, does work. So just,
and I think the other thing is that to tell them that often the outcome of doing a developmental screening is to assure them that their child is developing well, in addition to that there's help if something else concerning comes up. And I also think that to offer if sitting down and going through this together would be helpful. We can help you fill it out too. So those are a number of suggestions.
Great, thank you for answering that question. Are there other questions in our last few minutes here? So I see there's another question, and this is a question for Jill. How does your school district work with other agencies with screening?
Hi, this is Jill. Could you repeat the question?
Sure. So someone asked, how does your school district work with other agencies with screenings?
Well, our early learning program is comprised of Head Start, 4-year-old kindergarten, and special education. So we're kind of at a really unique place where in Eau Claire we've really developed a collaborative approach to early learning. And we work very closely with Birth to 3 and the Family Resource Center and those agencies. So we're, in a way, I feel like we're kind of the hub for that. And that's been a long time coming, those collaborative relationships with other agencies. It's been years in the making, so we've gotten to the point now where, you know, we streamline communication, we have transition meetings, we work together on the screenings, and I really think the developmental screening process, the ESQ, is really one part of it. This could take a year, this could take 6 months, you could get it done in a week. But sometimes building those relationships and working jointly with other agencies can be a long process, and not to get frustrated if you send it home with a family and don't get it back right away. There's a fit with it. It's in the best interest of their child. Anything else?
Well, thanks, Jill. We're kind of getting to our last minute here, and I want to be respectful of people's time, and I want to thank everyone for dealing with our audio challenges. So we have a number of webinars coming up still, so I want to direct you to those. You can see them on the screen. They're also on the Collaborating Partners website. So I know we had a number of challenges here today, so I'm going to reconvene with our volunteer team that's been working to put this great material together and see what we might be able to do to revisit the material of this particular tip sheet. But I want to certainly thank all of our presenters. Everybody stuck with our challenging audio, and I think we still got a lot of great insight on how to support parents in this important process. I loved how Romelia said ASQ is a window for parents into what's going on with their child. So we have a number of webinars coming up. They're listed here. Please register for those. You can register online, and let me just go back here on the Collaborating Partners website, and you can also find all of the tip sheets and again all of the archives of the webinars, and we'll put this information from today up. And here's a list of websites, and again I'll send all of this out, so no need to try to jot things down, but we have some great resources that the presenters shared today, and we'll send those out as well. Again, thank you to everyone who presented. Please watch for an email from me with an evaluation link coming up probably early next week. And we're going to wrap things up. And thank you so much, everybody. We'll be in touch, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.